to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast.
Welcome back to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. This is episode number 71. Last we left off, it was a bit of a love fest, and let's just say, let the love fest continue. At least that's my perspective here. Tron, as always, thanks for joining us. So much going right in the Warzone. It's kind of hard to keep track. We didn't even get to it all last week with the season. Is it 2 reloaded or 3 here in Vanguard?
Two.
Season 2 reloaded here on Vanguard. As always, ton to dig into, but let's ask the 10-inch-cowboy. How was your week this week in the Warzone?
Oh, thank you for that lively and enthusiastic introduction. My week in the Warzone was fantastic. I'm absolutely loving the state of the game right now. It's as simple as that. What else is there to say? It's so fun to play the game. Loving the weapons, loving the balance. I love the changes on the Rebirth map. I'm just loving the game. I love all the playlists. Like, everything's been fantastic. But just a little backside information there. The old cowboy had a night last night. Had a few too many buffalo milks on the old ranch with some of the old cattle hands. So I am feeling it today. You might hear it in my voice. It's a little raspier and deeper than usual. I was screaming all night. So there's that going for me. So I'm going to be a little slower to answer, but I'm going to bring as much enthusiasm as I possibly can. I'm hoping that this is going to be one of those episodes where the Tronster has plugged his battery in and he's ready to take over.
Oh, I've plugged it in, feeling hyped, feeling juiced here. Didn't get a ton of time with the squad, but last night, let me just tell you, Tronster dropped in with some serious solo Rebirth action.
Ooh, going solo these days.
I mean, I had no one else on, all by my lonesome. Late night, the Lady Tron Jr. and Tron Jr. were asleep in their beds, and, I had to get it on. So I got into some solos actions, really locking in my loadout. I got that Vargo now fully meted up. I've been making some changes. Let's just dive into it, I guess, off the rip. The big change I made this week, which was a bit, a step in the sweatier direction. I'd always been, not always, but, started on the heartbeat as my tactical, longtime heartbeat guy, big fan. Then I switched over to the old stun grenades, trying to get a bit sweatier, but I never really could execute the stuns effectively. I was thinking about it today as I was playing, and lifetime of running stuns, which was probably a good 6 months, I've maybe gotten 4 or 5 kills I could directly contribute to that.
You know what's funny, actually? Because I did the stun thing too for a while, and without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind, I stunned myself far more than I stunned other people. Misfiring hits wall, bounces back, you're stunned, then you get killed. That happened to me probably by 5-fold more than ever I killed people with stuns. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. More often than not doing yourself many favors. So this week, I don't know what it was that inspired me, but I made the switch from stuns to stims, the stimulus shot. And I have to say, just in these few days alone of running stims, I've probably already surpassed, my kill total I can attribute to that. Then stuns. Sometimes I'm even deploying them accidentally. Like today, I was in the middle of a gunfight, accidentally spammed it, so I inject myself with my left arm, and my right arm's still on my gun, and I'm hip firing, and I'm getting shot. But my heart rate in my life is going back up immediately, so it counteracted it. I somehow won a gunfight I had no business winning, and other times when I'm getting ready to push someone, or so many times, you want to rush into a situation like your buddies just got down, oh, this guy's one shot, and you're trying to get there quick. Now I just fucking flick that, jab that goddamn needle into my heart. I come surging into the building, ready, hard and ready to roll there. So
hard and ready to roll. I completely agree. Yeah, stems are cool. But it's funny. I've put stems in a few of my loadouts, and I think that was
it's stims. Let's just
what's
stim.
that?
Stim.
What am I saying? Stem?
Stem.
I'm weird like that with vowels. But so I put the stems in some of my loadouts. I think that was a reaction to when it was Vanguard only classes on Caldera. So I switched the stems in for that, those purposes, and I got rid of the heartbeat. So I'd kind of been working with them a little bit, and I think now I'm still running a heartbeat, but I still throw on, some of those loadouts where I got the stems ready to go, and it's hilarious because I will just like prematurely I'll hit X on my controller and I'll pop a stem when I'm meeting just to accidentally hit, I'll hit the heartbeat. I think I'm hitting heartbeat, but the stem gets popped. And then all of a sudden I'm all juiced up, torqued, and ready to go. And then I basically just run into a building hoping to find somebody. But I'm proud of you. That's a huge step. And I mean, it makes me think about before Vanguard and before they kind of revamped stems, they were kind of a dog shit. Like no one did people use them before this? Now they're like, I think pretty much meta, right?
I think there was definitely a swath of players that used them steadily, but I think because originally they didn't give you the increased speed, right? That was a relatively new, I think that was almost Vanguard.
Yeah, it was for sure Vanguard.
So I think once that change happened, the pick rate, as they call it, of players using it, I think went up dramatically and to a point where players were really abusing them. I think in the patch notes we covered fairly recently as they had to nerf stims a little bit. So yes, 100% think they're fairly meta. I'm part of that meta swath now. I love these frickin' things.
Was it you that sent me that video of a guy on Caldera and he gets into a gun exchange and he's hip firing and then he hits while he's in a fight, he literally hits a stim and he ends up killing the guy.
That was Scared of Clowns, but that is the exact situation I had. It was actually earlier prior to this recording, where yes, in a gunfight, accidentally hit it. Guy had the drop on me, but the stim's like steadily regenerating my health while I'm taking damage, so it kind of overrides that. And I won, and I felt like I don't think I'll ever turn back after that. That made me a stim fanatic.
Why did you hit the stim while you were in a gunfight? Did you know? Was this conscious?
I think it was an accidental or like old school button reflex trying to jump. I hit the X button because I'm now on bumper jumper. I don't know. Maybe some moment of brilliance came over me like a Rain Man strike of lightning. I don't know, but it happened and it was cool as shit. I should have clipped it.
So you're fully on the stims. What's your SMG that you're running with those things?
So yeah, had a bit of a loadout change this week. Had been going Owen gun for quite a while, but it just seemed like the fire rate's slow and it's lost in the shuffle, so I've reverted back. So again, the AR of choice is the Vargo, maybe one of my all-time favorite Call of Duty guns at this point. Loving
Really?
that.
I didn't realize you liked it that much. But you like it more than the AK?
I mean, it's got zero recoil. The AK, I think, slaps harder, and like you feel like, like I said way back in the day, like you say, like I read the big fuckers when you run the AK. This one's like a little smoother, like a Farah action. But it's just got no recoil. I like the way it handles. I like the simplicity of the Black Ops build. But to answer your question, I'm back on the MP40 as my short range gun. I've made some tweaks to the loadout based on like a fantastic Twitter account. We actually interacted with them this week. Warzone loadout. We've talked about them. They recommended some tweaks there on the build, so I took their advice. And loving the MP40. How about you? Where are you at?
I am. So when I'm playing Rebirth, I've gone pretty much exclusively back to the car sniping with the Cooper setup. I just love the car Cooper. It's hard to beat it. I get so much joy sniping. But then on the flip side of that, if I don't feel like sniping and I want to run an AR, which is usually a late game loadout for me, I got the KGM40 fully loaded, fully kitted, hogged out, and then I'm running that with actually You know what I actually built it with that I'm still running, and I probably am going to change it, but I messed around with it a little bit, was the Milano. Actually, friend of the pod, Pole, had been kind of obsessed with dropping on Rebirth and getting that red room build, the blueprint, in the bottom of the middle building at headquarters. And, you know, I dropped and grabbed it a few times, and it actually, you forget how much the Milano slapped and like is a great kind of short but also mid-range weapon. So actually I started messing around with the Milano. I also actually had a day where I threw on the Mac 10 just to give an old fling a chance, you know, at the big seat with me. But unfortunately the Mac 10 just wasn't quite holding its own. What I realized is actually the MP40, certain builds of the MP40 allow incredible movement and speed when you're obviously running around and shit. So for all the things that I loved the Mac 10 for, its movement, its mobility, being able to, dip and dive and dodge and dip and dive with that gun. Now with the MP40, actually, I've noticed that you can build it and actually have that same kind of movement. So I've gone actually back. I'm between. I have the Milano one right now, but I think I'm actually going to go back to the MP40. I do like the MP40 a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, the Mac 10. There was that time in where it was the hottest date you could get that summer. You know, the hottest girl or guy at school, and it's got like a hunch in its back now, or, you know, not looking so hot. There's a new girl in town, and they've really catered everything to her, and that's these Vanguard guns, the well guns right up there with it. My enthusiasm for the Armaguerra last week was very high, has since kind of plummeted, so maybe it was too early to say. It was too small of a sample size, feeling like that gun was doing me good. But
why has that diminished? You don't have that unlocked though, right? It's some insane unlock, right?
No. Yeah, God, no. I'll never have that for 5 more years. But it's just, I don't know. I think the other certain guns excel better than it, and, you know, for the most part, like the well gun and the MP40, I feel like those are the move right now. As you said, I think I have a build like you're talking about where your movement speed is like, especially when you have a stim pump in there, you're on a different level there as most players.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, so you're not into the KGM40. You're still, well, you got the Vargo, which it sounds like you're obviously super into, so you're going to stay with that. You don't have any interest in the KGM40, huh?
I like the KGM40. I got no problem with that. Mine's just not really leveled, and I'm you know, when you got a gun that you just got meta, that you worked on for a while, and it's in the meta, I feel like I'm going to enjoy it while it can. But I think you made a pretty, I don't know the word, I'm going to throw it out there, I don't know if it's accurate, but like a prescient prediction weeks back that you feel like the KGM40 is the future of the meta. And I think that's accurate. I think it's right up there now, but I think once maybe they nerf the Vargo some more, or some of these other guns, the Bren, that it's going to be in that spot because, yeah, it's got 0 recoil. It is a little cumbersome. The Vargo has a bit better mobility, and the reload on the Vargo is super quick. But I got nothing wrong with the KG. I love when I find those on the ground early game.
Yeah, you know, I love the KGM40 isn't one of my, I would not say it's like in a top 5 guns that have ever been in this game. I'm in love with it. You know, it doesn't hit as hard as the Bren, and I would imagine maybe the Vargo now that you're talking about it. It is a laser beam, and specifically it's a laser beam when you mount it. And I know that seems silly. It's like everything's a laser beam when you mount it, but I think some guns have a little bit of kick when you mount them. This gun literally there's 0. It does not move at all when you mount the gun, which is nice. It has great range, but yeah, it doesn't quite slap. It's not as hard as hitting as like the old AK or the Bren, or as I said, the Vargo. And then the other thing is the mobility. It is a big AR, that KGM40. It is slow. The ADS time can be long in certain builds. And I prioritize recoil control, obviously, over like, you know, my ADS speed. So typically it takes me a while to look down the barrel, but you know, it's my AR right now and I like it. It works for me. But I could see it's not for everyone. I understand that. Well,
I mean, this prompts an impromptu kind of question here. Because I think weeks back you had said like you were loving it. You said you liked it better than the Krig. It sounded like it was one of your all-time darlings, but let's just wipe that off the slate. Like if you had to pick, we don't got to do top 5, but what are, looking back as of now, what are your like top 3 guns? You could talk about in their heyday.
The car, I think, is
in
number
the
one.
Warzone. Okay.
The car, I get more joy playing with the car than anything else. I really had fun with the FFAR too back in the day. That one always stood out to me. I really enjoyed that short range but mid range kind of like mix on that gun, which is really good for my play style because I don't lose a lot of very close. I don't win a lot. I don't lose a lot. I don't win a lot. What am I saying here? I don't win a lot of close range skirmishes. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm within like a 5 to 10 meter or foot situation with people, those are the ones I typically lose. I excel more in like the 20 to 50 meter range, I think. And the FFAR was like the perfect range for that weapon. I know I'm probably forgetting something. I mean, when the Bren was completely broken, the Bren was fantastic. But I guess we're trying to keep
Farah. I know you like that.
I did love the Farah. I did love the Farah. I would put the KGM 40 above the Farah personally. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm, discrediting, maybe I see a new girl in town and I'm starting to look in a different direction a little bit. So I'm starting to throw a little shade on my old girl, but she's still great and I love her. But I wouldn't put her in the top. But I will say this though: the low recoil, the range, and like kind of like the ease of use of the KGM 40. If they were to buff that weapon and give it just a little bit more gusto when it had a little bit more power to it and it hit a little bit harder, that gun would be towards the top of that list. I think it's just missing a little bit of power for me.
Interesting. All right, so the top 3, we got the car, the FFAR, and then the KGM 40. So it's still up there. It's one of your steeds.
It is. I would put the
on.
Mac 10 maybe up on that list too, but I think the Mac 10, it was just like a time of my life where I was learning how to use a short range weapon, and it was just that, it taught me a lot about myself and how to explore that side of me that I had never explored before. So she did me good in that regard.
Some boyish nostalgia there for the Mac 10, maturity, prepubescent growth spurts. Love it. For me, I gotta say Vargo. Let's say the AK Cold War. Let's give it up for Tron's roots. Then probably the Vargo number 2, and then the old M13. Like, just love that gun. So maybe we'll see 1 or 2 of those stick around for Warzone 2 for the new Modern Warfare. That's too early to say, but let's dive into it. Quite a preamble here, rambling preamble, but a lot going on here when the vibes and the positivity is running so high. But let's talk about the big news with the Reloaded. Obviously, was all the patch notes. We covered that, but there was the Rebirth, reinforced, revamping, redesign. So many R words, alliterations going on there that we didn't have a time to dive into a ton of it, and I didn't have a ton of experience. So this week, I got a lot more time. So we're going to do what we call the new Rebirth secondhand impressions. Do you want to kick that off, or shall I?
Start it off for us.
All right. Well, first off, one thing we didn't cover last week that was a new addition on Rebirth was these redeploy balloons that we know from Caldera are now on Rebirth. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I don't have any issue with it. I've had a couple of moments where I'm actually, in a bind, need to get up on top of prison. No longer are you just handcuffed to take the old gondola up there and get shredded. You can actually grab these and traverse around the map. I'm not opposed to these at all. I think that you're probably in the same camp.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I like the way they reworked them to where you can't just go like south end to the north end on this motherfucker. Like, it's still got a nerfed range. It's like kind of been scaled for Rebirth size, but it makes some of these outskirt areas, especially the new, like, whatever security area, I forget what it's called, Stronghold. Like, you can drop there now, loot up, and then if you want to go push over to living quarters, instead of having to trek it on foot, hoof it uphill, exposed, you just fucking zip up that motherfucker, float over, or go towards control. So really smart addition. Great new mechanic. As we said when it was first invented, like, it's a home run. So rock on there. The next up that I did get my hands on finally that we talked about were these new mobile buy stations. In my first game with the team, we got one. And that was cool to see. But I quickly learned later on in a later game where it was final circle. Let me paint a picture for you here, listeners. Tron's the last guy alive on his quad in Rebirth. I'm locked and loaded, running around, pushing out of chem towards decon where the final circle's going. I kill a guy in a one-on-one. I have enough for a buyback, so I grab a nearby gas mask, go into the gas, buy a guy originally on my team back, and then somehow when I get into decon, I come upon a little more money, so I now have over $4,000 to get a second buyback. But what do you know? The buy's gone, so my teammates tell you, Tron, you have a portable buy station in your inventory. Deploy that. Be the hero we know you can be. So what do? I throw this thing final circle, but of course, it's right on the edge of gas as the circle is closing. So what do? I stick around with the last few ticks of my gas mask, waiting as the smoke plumes. Where is my mobile buy station? Is it coming ever? Why? And so the lesson here is those fucking things do not drop in the gas. It never came. I died in vain. So mobile buy stations are cool, but they do not work in the gas.
Wow, I totally thought that story was going in a different direction. You set it up like you were going to be the hero, that you were the knight in shining armor for your team. But in fact, you blew it and cost the team the victory. I'm assuming the first individual that you bought back in that story did not pull a clutch.
Well, they ended up being AFK and immediately broke their legs and died. So it was quite.
Wow.
It was quite.
Oh my God. I couldn't have imagined a better response to me asking that. That's great. That's just great podcasting.
It was like just when you think you're a sweat lord, the amateurism pulls you back to reality.
Well, you're only as strong as your weakest link in Rebirth, That's right. So bad timing there, and it was pretty rad to experience. Again, apologies for not clipping it. Fantastic times. So love that new addition. But yeah, I wish they did work in the gas because that would have made a cool little move. But next up, which we teased last week, they were not yet released as the time we recorded. And they're part of the reinforced community event on Rebirth, and that is these weapon trade stations. And so I think it was like you had to hit 1 billion or something kills as a community to unlock those. Well, that 1 billion kills came quick. It did.
Because this past week, the weapon trade stations are unlocked. Have you had any experience with those yet?
Yeah, a lot actually. They like to plant one of those near headquarters where I like to drop, and I think they're kind of cool. You get kind of weird, funky things from them. You always seem to have a weapon on, especially in the beginning of a match, that you don't really give a shit about, and you're like, I want to find something else to swap this out. Well, go down there, throw one of those weapons in there, and you know what I do it with all the time is if I find like a gold or purple handgun. They have like those shit handguns that like you really would never pick up, but you can go trade in one of those golden things and you get like a gas mask or like an armor satchel or something. I think they're cool. I mean, it is a little vulnerable when you pull up to them because you got to wait like 3 or 4 seconds to make that actual swap. And then another kind of shitty thing about them is if you do multiple swaps, all the stuff that it gives you drops in the same fucking location. So it's like when you're getting your loadout and there's 30 guns around the loadout and you can't swap to the thing that you want to pick it up because there's too many items on the ground. That happens at these. But besides those little tiny issues, I do like these. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a cool addition. My qualms are they're a little too like unpredictable. I wish it's kind of like a slot machine now. Like, you throw in the coin, you don't know what you're going to get out. Obviously, you can look and it tells you, but it's like when you're in the middle of a match, you don't have the time to like, let me take a look at what I will retrieve for using this. So like maybe if it was a consistent thing where like, okay, you give it a legendary weapon, you're going to get X. You give it a blue weapon, you're going to get Y. You give it a base weapon, you're going to get Z type of thing. Because it is... it's kind of randomized.
I think slot machine is a perfect analogy. I think you're totally right.
So, but I think the real tip here, which I don't know if it's much of a tip, y'all probably have figured it out, but one thing I've been doing is a lot of times I'll want to use that when I have like my loadout guns, and it's like I'm obviously not going to trade that fucking magic Vargo or whatever. So what I'll then do is go whatever nearby I'm at, pick up a ground loot weapon, then go trade that motherfucker, get some free gear, go back, pick up my old weapon, boom, boom, bang, bang, bada bing.
You know what I'll do too is if you're at headquarters or wherever, people are dying there all the time. Go swap out for someone else's loadout weapon that you just, took from them because you slaughtered their ass. And then you go and you trade their shit in. And that way, when they come back, they don't have their weapon and you get the shit for it.
That is some 4D chess devious. I love it. That's some fantastic tips. One of your best I've had. Wouldn't have thought to do that. So weapon trade stations have been unlocked. The other thing that I think we teased, that was the next on the list for unlocking. It was like after how many millions of weapon trades take place, then you're going to unlock this new feature, and that is the communication towers on Rebirth, which allow you to spend, I think it's $1,500 when you're near one, and it's a stationary tower that will ping for about 10 seconds, basically a stationary UAV, and show you what's going on. Have you had a chance to use that?
I have used those, yeah. I feel like I've explained those to like 7 people that we played with this week because no one understood what they were. And once I understood, everyone was like, oh, what is that? That's so cool. But yeah, I do like these. I mean, they're static. They're not moving. So it's not like a typical UAV. But they're cool. And I think that you can get lucky. Say you're on bioweapons rooftop and that's where the circle's pulling at the end of a Rebirth match. You got some cash. You can hit one of those. Like you're on Chem. Or not Chem, I'm sorry, Nova. And all of a sudden, like it's ending towards the Nova area. There's one on the Nova roof. So I think that if you start to think about them, especially in late game situations, you may want to take roofs to use those. But I do want to go back to my last point about stealing someone you kill's weapon and trading it back at a weapon trade station. You know what I just realized I really want to try to do and achieve is to kill somebody in that little backyard area, of where it is at headquarters there. Mm-hmm. And then when they die, their kill cam will stay there for a minute, right? So it'll see that little backyard area. And what I want to do is, in that moment, teabag them 4 or 5 times, give them a couple teabags, and then have them watch me take their weapon and then switch it in so they'll know exactly what I'm doing before they redeploy. Am I a fucked up person? But that seems so funny to me. If you could get somebody to watch, that whole thing unfold in their little kill cam.
I mean, all's fair in love and Warzone in my book. I love it, especially if they're a sweaty little, they got some bullshit like a well gun all kitted up. I'm never going to have that in my loadout. And neither are you, motherfucker. I'm trading it in. Even if they give me like a muni box or something for it, I'll take it. Or a gas mask and I already got one. Great. Get that shit off the map. Go spend another $10K if you want it back.
Yeah. Or, if like, say one of your teammates starts stealing shit from the crates that you open, maybe when your teammate dies, you grab their weapon and fuck them over a little bit.
All right. Now the deviousness is getting a little dark.
Yeah.
But that said, 2 new additions on Rebirth, 2 new, I think, wins. I think the main thing with these comm towers is I need to get more familiar with exactly where they are, just so I can use them more, because I kind of been accidentally running into them, but it's like $1,500. Usually got that to spare. It's well worth that little low, especially the one by headquarters. We're always hanging out there, and that buy station by Granny is so hot. Being able to just ping that quickly and be like, okay, the buy is clear, we can go use it. It's going to be like a regular thing I think we do from here on out.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Now, there's been a lot of wins, a lot of love going on, but one thing that's been driving me fucking nuts, and I'm sure you out there, Warzone amateurs, likewise have experienced it, is a new glitch going on with buy stations. And that, I don't know, Cowboy, if you've experienced it, but when you go to make a selection, it glitches and it moves your selection up 1 spot, like every single time. Have you noticed that?
I notice it every single time, and it's so fucking annoying. The only thing that would make it worse is that when you do it, thank God it goes back up to where your other teammates are if you were going to do a buyback. If it somehow like skipped and went 1 up, you know how many fucking things I would buy on accident that I didn't mean to buy? And that would be like fully frustrating. But nonetheless, it is still frustrating. But you know what I'm saying?
I mean, to me, that's super. I had 2 times where I was trying to buy a loadout and, instantly hit up one, boom. And then all of a sudden you hear, beep, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a fucking loadout. I just accidentally bought someone back and it's Rebirth. So it's like the ultimate waste of fucking money. So that thing is infuriating. The good news is that Raven tweeted they are aware of it. They're working on a fix. It seems like it might not be happening every single time, but as of this morning before recording this, it is still in the goddamn game.
Yeah, I gotta think that they fixed this with the next update. This seems like such a simple fix, right?
You would hope so. But finally, in terms of new stuff going on Rebirth, we talked about the key card bio, take it over to Stronghold, get the fucking specialist perk and free loadout. Did that a bit, but everyone's on to that. It's a little too spicy now. There is another Easter egg that we were made aware of by one of our loyal listeners and Discord users who we've mentioned actually before on here. A 36-year-old dad who I have confirmed is in fact still 36, though he's turning 37 in the not too near future.
Not to be confused with UAV found my dad, unless this is the
correct.
dad that the UAV found, maybe.
No, I think they might be friends, might not, but yes, there is also a fellow UAV found my dad, but this is a 36-year-old dad who shared about an Easter egg that I was unaware of, and that is if you drop, don't necessarily need to drop, but if you're at one of the ships, there's a horn in the captain's area that you can interact with. And if you honk this horn, I had to look it up. You need to do it sometimes as little as 1 time, sometimes as much as 8 times. But ultimately, if you honk it a certain amount of time, it'll give off a long horn, and then there will be a loadout, not a loadout, but a loot drop. A plane will come in, it'll drop you a fat amount of loot. Did you have a chance to try this?
I tried it, but I was unsuccessful with getting the loot. I honked the horns and then got killed by somebody noticing I was honking the horns. The horns are loud. The entire map hears the horns.
Yeah, it's like a fucking foghorn, and I'm right there with you. I tried this thing 2, maybe 3 goddamn times. I honked it on one time at least 6, 7, I'd say 8 or 9 times.
You're just sitting there honking the horn, and everyone on the
Literally,
map's like,
we're
will somebody
fighting-
fucking kill that guy?
Dude, we were fighting the same team over and over, and it was like, fight him, honk, honk, play it up, honk, honk. So maybe, I think the one glitch is only one person on the team has to honk. Like if somebody else honks in the middle, it messes it up. But I'm done with that fucking glitch. But that said, props to 36-year-old dad for sharing it. It is a real thing. We've had people confirm. So if you're on the ship, maybe give it a honk and you get it a 1 go. Otherwise, I don't know.
Get on the ship, honk the horn. You know what I like is that the amount of Easter eggs and little tiny nuances that they've added to Rebirth was very unexpected and very cool. Whether it's, the specialist perks with the loadout, which I know is being overdone now, whatever. Whether it's these these incredible blueprints, the sniper in the headquarters tower or the red room in the bottom of the middle building at headquarters, whether it's honking the horn, all this stuff, they just they threw all of it at us. And I love all of it. I'm so happy they did this. It makes every game interesting.
I'm with you. And in hindsight, we always were kind of roasting them. Like, what are they doing? You would talk about, they're hungover from the Activision merger. This, that, and the other. Maybe they were hungover, but you can attest to how hard that would be to come to work and work in that state. So credit to them if they were, but clearly they were working hard to build all this new content. Clearly there's a lot of forethought, so much stuff that wasn't even announced. As you touched on there, there's some sweat lords out there, some streamers who have gone over it. There's tons of blueprints of basically, from the hallmarks of the meta throughout Warzone history. There's blueprints of those guns all around Rebirth that you can drop in and get. There's a Car 98 on the HQ tower. There's a street sweeper inside prison. There's a nail gun in the prison courtyard. All over the Milano. You talked about the Red Room Milano. Those are all over the map. Never were announced. Just stuff for us to discover by playing the game. So yeah, salute to Rebirth, Resurgence, or Reloaded. The new game modes are awesome. The new additions, I said it before, but we've talked about in previous episodes, oh, Warzone has so much potential. It could be this good of a game. I feel like now I am living that reality. Like, I love the game. I can't get enough of it. It's a shame I'm unable to play more, but every time I play the game, even when I get my ass kicked, I'm still having so much fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. Game is in the best shape. I don't think it's ever been in better shape right now. I think it's the best.
It's a great time to be part of the Warzone crew, the Warzone Amateur Hour crew especially. Get those WAs up in your regiment if you don't already. But they did have a bit of a monkey wrench this week that came in, and that was on April 1st, which, as many know, is April Fool's Day, which, not to do a tangent, but it's a stupid fucking holiday, pranking everyone like that. But that said, they pranked us, and they released a whole new set of playlists that was called, like, Totally Normal BR and Totally Normal Rebirth. And they fucked with all that. I didn't give a chance to drop in because I was so disgusted by it, but you seem to like it. Do you want to talk about that? Share with our listeners.
Yeah, I dropped in the night of, I think it was Friday night, with a friend of the pod, Sparks, and we had a great time. I mean, yeah, of course, like, everyone drops in with the specialist perk, which isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it really doesn't change everything that much, but yeah, so you drop in with the specialist perk. I'm trying to think about what else was different. I mean, it wasn't that different.
Resurgence was continuous.
Yeah. You're right. So that's the other big point, is that Resurgence never ends. So as long as one of you guys is alive, you're constantly, obviously, resurging, coming back. And I actually, we got into a couple of late games where I thought that mechanic was fascinating when there were 3 teams left, 6 people on the map, and one would die, and you knew that other person was hiding and someone was dropping in from the sky shortly. So it changed the way in which you it made the ends of the game very fun and interesting. And how did you want to, because I knew if my partner died, I would kind of wait. I wouldn't push somebody, obviously. I'd wait till he was coming back, at least to try it again. So it kind of created another layer to the chess match at the end of the game. Which I don't know if it's something that I want forever, but it didn't ruin it at all. It actually made it more fascinating and different, very different.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to experience it. I was a little frustrated. At least give us the option to play the normal one. That's fine. Throw in a joke playlist.
It's
here,
one day. It's one day.
Yeah, I was disgusted by it. But
you played too much Warzone when they fuck with it on one day. You're upset about it. We have issues. I mean, I guess we do a Warzone. We got
maybe
issues.
It's the opposite. I don't play Warzone enough, and it was I'm trying to get on tonight. Now I'm gonna have to deal with this bullshit. But that said, on Caldera, yeah, they disabled fall damage, and I don't even think you could deploy your parachute. So people, when they first dropped in, were like, "Oh my god, my chute!" And then they hit the ground, and were like, "Wait, I'm still alive." So that was live for a day. Cowboy seemed to like it. I, in theory, didn't try it though, so whatever.
In theory, you didn't like it, but you didn't try it. In theory, I thought the same as you. In theory, I was like, oh, this is going to be stupid, and it's going to be, really hokey, and it's not going to be serious. But it was more true to the normal gameplay than you'd think, and actually, it made you think about the end of the games a lot differently, which was really fun. And I think we did get a win that night, actually, which was cool.
So it was the same resurgence mechanic where there was still the same time ticker counting down. It just never had Rebirth disabled. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Okay.
Well, all right. Well, no, actually, what was your question? Say it one more time.
I was saying essentially the Rebirth never ending was you still had the same timer, right? You had to stay alive if your teammate was dead to come back. Is that correct?
I want to say, and I could be wrong on this, it was dramatically shorter for Rebirth or Resurgence. So I think it was only 15 seconds was the counter to start.
Okay.
So you were constantly coming back, which was fun because it made the game longer. There were more people on the map, but it was like a battle for longer. The game was going on because you kind of always had somebody around. Eventually, obviously, it gets whittled down and then the end happens. But I really enjoyed it, actually. I didn't have any problem with it.
Well, they have the 15-second timer. I confirmed in Rebirth Solos, that's how long you have to stay alive. And what I think is cool in Rebirth Solos, that timer does not start until your feet touch the ground, so you can't just float upon Rebirth.
That's cool.
But let's move on. We saw a bunch of big changes 2 weeks ago or a week ago with Season 2 Reloaded. Well, that didn't stop them. These guys are fucking hard at work trying to drive that Microsoft stock price up, or I don't know, or they're just gearing up here. So bravo to them at Raven. But they made this week, which we haven't seen, I believe, certainly not to this breadth, is a massive overhaul to perks in Warzone. That's your perk slot 1, 2, and 3. And so the way they teed it up is we see this chapter of Warzone as an ever-evolving and layered gameplay space where we want both counterplay and interplay between systems to be viable. We want to provide players with a variety of tools to create even more interesting stories or, quote, big brain plays that take advantage of system in ways that we as developers never thought possible.
Okay. So what does that mean?
That means you just spasm, hit the stim button. No, sorry. That was a big brain play. I'm sure they never thought possible. No, but let's tee it up here. So the big changes here for the perks, they said perks are going to make for a significant part of the push towards this objective. The changes observed today represent a glimpse of what is to come in Season 3. So they're already looking ahead to the next season, which is gotta be one of our last before the new Call of Duty standalone games comes out. But that said, first on the agenda is this Scavenger Perk, which I've talked about. That was the old favorite of Tron on multiplayer. Seemed like it didn't really have any fucking use here on Warzone with the institution of crates and people dropping ammo. Because for you, Cowboy, you haven't played, I think, multiplayer a lot. On multiplayer, when you kill someone, they don't drop loot. There's no fucking crates on the map. So you get whatever ammo's in your gun in your life, and when you run out, you're pretty much fucked unless you were running scavengers. So your boy loved to spray hallways, loved to go through the ammo as much as possible. So I love to run scavenger, but they've now tweaked that for Warzone to where the pouches, which I guess that's what players drop perhaps, it says it's now going to have a cyan outline for those that have scavenger. They've increased the dissipation time from 20 seconds to 60 seconds. So I guess the loot that players dropped would only stay on the map for 20 seconds and then would dissipate. Now that's now 60 seconds. The pouch that players drop with the Scavenger Perk gives you one armor plate on top of the previous items always, and they said Scavenger was originally built for multiplayer encounters where your eliminations are typically easy to reach and foot traffic aligns with elimination zones, but in Battle Royale setting, players have a lot more space to cover and a lot more time passes in between encounters. With this change, we aim to assist in identifying where your spoils of war are located while also providing more time to acquire them. The update to the items may seem small, but more aggressive player may see better results in staying stocked up on gear.
Okay. So it doesn't seem that appealing to me still. I don't understand what the fuss is all about. It still doesn't seem that great.
I'm there with you. I guess maybe the one armor plate, but I think Scavenger's Perk slot 1. I guess maybe it's tempting, but there's a lot of better options. But to them, to their credit, I guess it's better than, it was dog shit before. Now
didn't have a Warzone option, right? So now there's actually something.
Yeah, it's like dog shit before. Now it's like bat shit. Like you can go put it in your garden. It'll give you a little bit of nutrients type of thing.
Guano.
But next up, which I think I was surprised to see, kind of got a slight buff here because I felt like it's a pretty damn powerful perk. I have messed around with it in the past, flirted with it a bit, and that is the restock perk. And what they did is the recharge time was reduced from 50 seconds to 25 seconds. So if you're running restock, that means your lethal and tacticals are going to re-up every 25 seconds. However, the stim has actually been nerfed to where that is going to be a 60-second timer because they want to reduce spamming and gas abuse. Speaking
you
of
have
which,
to. You have to do that. You have to.
Yeah.
It'd be too gnarly at 25 seconds. Too gnarly.
Oh, you would be able to stay in the gas infinitely, and we saw you can almost do that in its previous state. There was a player on YouTube. He got a win on Caldera with 0 kills. It was actually a really entertaining match.
0 damage,
essentially,
0 kills.
Yeah, well, what he did in the end game was he just ran around the gas, restocking those stims kind of thing. So that's now been changed. They said the incorrect in-game text 50 seconds will be updated in future updates. So apparently it's reading differently. And they said Restock saw an increase in time with the original launch of Battle Royale. But as Warzone has evolved, it's become noticeable that its strength has diminished. So we want there to be stronger choices in the red category, that's perk slot 2, that heavily impact the playstyle around the respective perk. And there's an opportunity with this revamp to create room for experimenting with other or various equipment that doesn't get as much love.
You know, that's interesting because I feel like the second perk slot is very much kind of dictating how that player plays the game, you know? Whether it's Ghost, whether it's Overkill. I mean, what those are completely dictating the way you're playing the game, whether you have two primary weapons or if you're go. You know what I mean? It seems like a weird. I don't know if I agree with that.
I agree. Perk slot 2, like that is the de facto. That's the big decision. Is really when you pick your loadout and you're dictating like, oh, I'm gonna get this. You're always referring to whatever that perk slot 2 choice is. That's the meat and potatoes. So, trying to make Restock reappealing. I think it is to begin with, but maybe more so now. I like that you can't, abuse the stims. But that said, I think I'm sticking with, my old Overkill, and then I'm still Tempered as my second loadout when I can get that. But next up, which is an interesting one that I've been tempted to go back to with the state of the game, and that is the EOD perk. So they've done it. They've reduced the damage or capped the damage whichever is higher, which I'm not really sure what that means, but they raised the cap on explosive damage from 80 to 200, and they've raised damage reduction from 35% to 45%. And they said with the adjustments to lethals dealing more damage in Vanguard Season 1, we wanted to align EOD with those changes so it's a viable counter in the perk meta.
Okay.
So not exactly sure about the cap and all that, but essentially it just seems like it's going to diminish that explosive or fire damage more often. And I've certainly noticed a lot of people are back to running RPGs, and I'm getting blasted by those fucking things a lot. So I've been tempted to go back to EOD as my perk slot 1. How about you?
What do I have in EOD, or what do I have in perk slot 1 right now? Is it Quick Fix? Or is it EOD? I might have EOD right now. I'd have to check. I'm not actually sure what I have. What do you have?
Speaking of Quick Fix, that's the next one up in terms of adjustments. And so previously you had to kill someone for your health to begin regenerating. Well, now all you got to do is insert an armor plate. And they said Quick Fix was already a decent meta contender, but similar to other perks, it was primarily built for multiplayer. This change makes its effect more potent in a Battle Royale setting, and we hope it will lead to some really fascinating plays. I myself am currently using Quick Fix, I think across the board, but again, I'm mainly a Rebirth player. I like this change, still sticking with Quick Fix, but yeah, that's my question to you is kind of what are you running under that perk slot 1?
I think I have Quick Fix, especially when I'm running Rebirth constantly. I'm on the Quick Fix tip, but I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to check. I think it's Quick Fix. I think I'm on Quick Fix. I think.
All right. Well, I'm down with it. It's definitely noticeable. You get Quick Fix, you get stims, you got a lot of regeneration of health going on.
Yes.
But next up, which to me, when I read it, I wanted to stand up and cheer. I've always felt like, players shouldn't be able to stay off the mini-map completely. The prevalence of suppressors and ghosts and all that, it's just kind of a joke. So what they did with Ghost is this stealth effect now only applies if a player is moving. So if you're staying still, you're hiding in a little building, you will not be ghosted even if you have that perk applied. And they said you can observe this via an arrow representing their operator in the minimap fading when Ghost is active. And they said in the pre-Caldera world, Ghost has always been very beneficial. However, in Caldera, it's obvious that it's become stronger with the ability to seek visual cover and foliage across the map. With this change, we aim to balance the perk around being mobile or being stationary to provide more counterplay opportunities around the Ghost perk. They're thoroughly looking at the stealth and detection meta with the intent to create more value and the options available to acquire and combat it.
You know, Ghost has become a little irrelevant for a Rebirth. Not totally, but you're not using it the way that you do on the big map. You know, it's not as critical. So Ghost has become kind of not as, you know, it's not as important as it once was, I feel like. So I feel like it's interesting that they're kind of nerfing it in a way that you have to be moving for it to, for you to be ghosted. I wonder what that means against UAVs. Are you still, or like say advanced, I guess you'd only, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I got to see them play.
I like it. I mean, if UAV goes up and you're staying still and you got Ghost, you're going to show up. So you got to get fucking moving. Don't go hiding. Speaking of Ghost going away, I'm with you. Although in Rebirth solos, I've been real tempted to make a Ghost class and start dropping that because everyone's running the heartbeat sensors in that.
Yeah.
And I think being able to stay off that would really be an advantage. So an interesting wrinkle. I like where they're moving the game. So yes, perk overhaul. We want to hear from you though. What are you all running out there? What are your perks? Any of these changes cause you to kind of jump ships? But speaking of we touched on the meta last week, where it's at, how things have been shaken up. One thing I noticed this week, which I'm curious about you, is it seems like shotguns are back on the menu, especially that street sweeper. Almost OP.
Yep. It sounds like the shotguns are coming back. It sounds like they buffed them all a little bit across the board, which is good because they've been completely irrelevant, and especially ground loot shotguns are absolutely terrible. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to see like a broken shotgun meta, but at the same time, get it in the mix. You know, why not?
I like that they're back on the menu, but it's interesting. Of all the gun classes, it feels like there's such a fine line with that between them being worthless and overpowered. And I think part of the problem is they should have never fucking introduced an automatic shotgun into the game. I think they can make the shotguns good, but then when you have the street sweeper, it's kind of pushes it over the line. I don't know. But I guess in the state of it, I'm not getting totally overrun by them, so I'm okay with it. But I think the easy fix would have been just don't give us one where you can literally hold down the fucking trigger and it's like doof, 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 doof.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure.
But finally, some interesting news came out a few weeks back we weren't able to touch on with all the releases going on, but wanted to bring it to the forefront here, and that is that Raven and Sledgehammer identified an issue with aim assist in Warzone and Vanguard. And they said basically it was causing it to become active and inactive at times. And so they're going to be patching that hopefully. So if you had times where you felt like aim assist wasn't working or something was bugged, you were probably right.
You know what's crazy about that is I've actually noticed that. There's times where I feel like aim assist is overpowered, and there's times where I feel like I don't even feel it at all. And I've noticed that, and I've thought that. I didn't know that was an issue, and now that you say that, I've definitely experienced that 100%.
So yes, they're currently working on a fix. They said a patch will be coming to Warzone soon, but they're aware of it. Additionally, TP, who's one of the top streamers in Warzone, he held a chat with Warzone developers a few weeks back, and they confirmed that Warzone Ranked is in the works. And so that's the first part of that. I'm curious for your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm an amateur, man. I'm not trying to get ranked, you know?
Yeah, but you've run tournaments, bro.
I've ran a few, and they've gone terribly.
I think it's cool. And I'm actually think, if there was a ranked version of Rebirth, I think we'd be all over that, trying to earn our stripes. And I'm kind of frustrated by this tournament things, trying to get time to play with my buddies, and they got fucking tournaments slated.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. If they're listening, listen to us.
So hopefully if, they introduce this ranked feature, maybe that'll scratch that itch so they can just play it at will as opposed to, quarantining off their buddies who are ready to play, kicking them out because they got a tournament.
Well, that seems like a logical step for Warzone. I think Z-League has become obviously popular, and people really like that, having a tournament steps your game up for all the reasons you'd love doing it. It's working. Why wouldn't Activision and Raven or Sledgehammer, whomever, why wouldn't they build their own model of that and build that into the game? Imagine playing Warzone and you could enter a tournament version in-app, in-game, and you could play with your friends and not have to like go online to like schedule. Like it seems like a no-brainer to keep that all in-house. So I would not be surprised if that's what happens. And then obviously there's like the gambling component. You could put wagers on your shit. Like that should all be in game, you know? Like if I was running that business, I would be.
Well, casino aside, ranked isn't like a tournament type thing. It's more just like you earn your stripes. You start as a certain rank. When you're playing ranked, I think it's much more objective in terms of the matchmaking, in terms of who you're being scheduled against. But you start to level up. And I know, Apex is huge on that. Players grind that game, trying to level up in ranked. To me, it seems like it's a no-brainer. Like you're going to get people more addicted to the game as it is. And the players that are more casual, the amateurs out there that don't want to be in that pool, they can go stick on the buddy slope. They got the fucking X Games over down there on the Black Diamond. Let those guys do their fart fignugan 360 pop shove-its, and we'll be staying over here just having fun, leveling our guns, having a good time.
Yeah, I agree.
But the other thing that was revealed on this call is they asked him, like, hey, man, we want Verdansk back. Like, why won't you just make it to where we can pick a playlist of, like, Caldera or Verdansk? And they basically said it's kind of a programming limitation. They would love that, but essentially it would require you to re-download the game every time you switched maps. So, unfortunately, for anyone out there hoping that's going to be a possibility, it's not going to be happening.
Nope, not at all.
All right. Well, finally, we got an email from a listener we're going to end this episode on. And this is from Chris in Switzerland. We apologize, Chris, for not covering this when you first sent it. But again, so much going on in the Warzone. But we got time for it now. And he says, I'm a bit mad that they removed the Vanguard Royale modes as I settled on the Vanguard guns. I don't understand the point that they don't want two separate communities. So why don't they remove the old stuff and just keep Vanguard Royale? Then you would also end up with one community. He said it was fun making different perks viable and not getting sniped by a Modern Warfare car or Swiss all the time. We know that Vanguard guns are outperformed by the old ones, except maybe SMGs. Do I really have to go back to my Dinosaur PKM with heartbeat sensor, ghost, and amped? I don't see progression here. What are your thoughts on that, Cowboy?
It is interesting that they just like got rid of Vanguard Royale. It's like it was like a weird testing time. I feel like they put it out there. You had to level all your shit up. Then all of a sudden they take it away from us and it's like, use whatever you want. That is kind of like, it is kind of maddening in a way. If you're like you put all this time into like getting like these other weapons there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can use whatever the fuck you want. Well, obviously, yeah, there's a lot of better weapons outside of the Vanguard class. So I hear what Chris is saying. I do. What do you think?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like their testing ground. And they made all these improvements. And you kind of got to love Vanguard Royale. And then they just applied it across the board and were like, yeah, that's out of here. We learned what we needed. Get the fuck out of here. If you wanted to run Vanguard guns, but you got shit on by all the other guns, well, you're stuck. So I do kind of, again, we've talked about often on this podcast, like having more options is always better for the player. I thought it was a cool move to kind of relegate. Like, I thought that was an interesting solution to this whole bloatedness of guns and perks and, Vanguard versus Black Ops versus fucking Modern Warfare. Like, let us just hang out there. The other part of this equation is what's going on with the fucking airplanes. Are those ever coming back, or are those just gone like the part of the dinosaurs in these Vanguard playlists and they're never coming back? Because that was solely a Vanguard thing too.
I miss the airplanes, and I know specifically a few other people that do as well. The airplanes are the best.
We miss the airplanes, but we love to get emails like this from our listeners. We love you all out there. We love the state of the game. And that is going to do it for us this week on the Warzone Amateur Hour. It's been so jam-packed. The Lovefest has been going on. We're feeling it. As I said before, my playtime is only going to start increasing here as we're ramping up. So I'm just loving the state of the game. Excited to play with you all. Apologize to the listeners who've been inviting me and stuff. A lot of times when I'm on late night, I can't even go on the mic. But excited for where we're at and where we're headed.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I want to play right now. I'm so stoked.
All right. Well, perhaps you'll see us on your friends list. logging on, but we're going to be logging off here on that episode. And as always, we will talk to you next week. And as always, until then,
good luck in the gulag.